Why did we waste a full day of riding in Germany? Why is Morten's side panniers broken? And why did we sleep on the side of the road in Sweden? Because we made these 3 mistakes. Mistakes that can end your trip, and all the money and time spent on planning is wasted. I made this video so you can learn from my mistakes and not your own. Let me take you on one of our previous motorcycle journeys around the Baltic Sea, where I will show you what happens if you do not avoid these 3 mistakes. This is exactly how far we got when Morten asked me on the intercom, "Jens, is there something wrong with my rear wheel?" And I could just see Morten bumping around on the highway. After waiting several hours on the nearest parking spot, it turned out the inner tube in Morten's rear wheel was too long and had been layered inside the tire, which is resulting in a puncture. Which brings us to mistake number 1, not checking your gear. This could easily have been avoided if we had checked the inner tubes in our tires just one time since we bought the bikes. Just make sure you know the state of your bike before going on a long trip. And it's of course not only the bike. Check everything. Is all the accessories for the tent in your tent pack? Is your sleeping pad airtight? And all the electrical stuff, can it charge, can it turn on? One full day of riding lost, and all the things we wanted to see and all the things we wanted to do now in a smaller amount of time. Our very good planning quickly turned into very, very bad planning, which really shines through when we reached Sweden. But first we had to survive a small incident in Poland, and here I'm guilty. So what actually happened to Morten's panniers? We were flying through Poland, me on the old Africa Twin and Morten on the Transalp. Suddenly an ambulance shows up in the distance, riding in the middle of the road, and me riding behind Morten is looking at the ambulance. Morten, who is closer to the center of the road, moves a little to the right and maybe slows down a little, and then suddenly, boom, my crash bar rams into Morten's right pannier, leaving Morten as a passenger on a wiggling bike. So that is mistake number 2, riding too close. So what did we learn? It doesn't matter if it's your friend or some stranger on the other motorbike. Everything just happens so quickly, so just keep distance. After that small life lesson, we actually managed to ride all the way to Sweden without any big issues. Except for one small thing. If this video is valuable to you, please like it and share a comment with some of your mistakes on bigger trips. Along the way on the entire trip, we realized something that made our life harder on the bikes every day. Every time we stopped, I had a lot of stuff I had to unpack and put back on the bike every time. And the bike was just unnecessarily heavy. We had packed too much. So a small tip here for packing. What you need on a longer trip is kind of the same as you need on a smaller trip. I plan a small, maybe a weekend trip, where I pack everything I think I need, all the things I haven't touched. I'll simply not pack for the longer trip. As we carried on through the Baltic countries and all the way through Finland, we reached Sweden. Well, the bad planning really hit us hard. Since Sweden was the last country before coming back to Denmark, we had not prioritized planning much here since we saw Sweden as more like a ride-through country to get back home. After a really good day of riding, with many good kilometers, a lot of nice views, some gravel roads, some forest, it suddenly got dark and we had not planned anywhere to sleep. We was in an area with very bad phone signal, so we could not get any help from our phones. Ended up riding around for hours, trying to find somewhere to sleep, hotels or camping spots, but there was nothing. Luckily it's legal to camp almost anywhere in Sweden. So we just went into a forest on a small gravel road where we could make a camp. Which reveals mistake number 5, under planning. We did as many others do, or at least they say they do. We don't plan anything, so we can just go and do what we want. And look what happened. We ended up wasting a nice evening riding around trying to find somewhere to sleep. I'm sure the area was full of nice camping spots with shelters and maybe wood for a nice campfire. We just couldn't find it because we didn't do our homework. What we have learned to do is to research what we want to see, but also where it's possible to sleep along the route. Not only at the planned destination, but also a bit before it and a bit after it. So whatever happens, if we are short of time, we know where to sleep. But also if we have more time than expected, we can easily go further than planned. Under planning is one thing, but over planning is definitely also possible. In the first part of the trip, we had a very strict plan of what we wanted to do. We almost knew when to arrive and when to leave at the exact time every day, which just became too stressful, especially after Morten's small incident. So my best tip for planning is some kind of balance between having no plan and between having a very strict plan. Just make sure you know where to sleep and make sure you know what you want to see, and then take everything in between as a possibility to experience something unexpected. I am going through these mistakes, trying to learn from what I previously did, because we are planning our next big trip. Next year we will go from Malaysia to Denmark. If you want to follow this trip, make sure to subscribe on the channel. When preparing for a big trip like we are, and probably also you, what is the single most important thing to make sure it's 100% ready for that big trip? Watch this video, where I will share how a professional helped me to avoid mistake number 1. See you there.